All right, back on the bench is the Pioneer PL117. So what's going on with this now? And what's kind of frustrating about this one is, you know, I got it working just fine mechanically. It's working fine. So I took it down to the shop. And when I take these to the shop, I'll hook them up for the shop owner. I normally will, I'll plug it in, listen to a record as I'm doing something else. Dropped it off, a couple records on it. We've demoed this for customers and worked just fine. So this is, what are we, about 12 days before Christmas, the end of 2002, or 2022. And I demoed this for a customer and lose sound in one channel. But it's not just a loss of sound, it's really muffled sound. So I did kind of the basic troubleshooting steps. I removed the cartridge, put a new cartridge on it, same muffled sound, and it's almost a total lack of sound on one channel, but I get like a volume of, you know, like 1 out of 10 on one of the channels. So I eliminated the cartridge and the head shell as the problem. The cables could be the problem if it was just no sound on one channel, but it's really muffled. So I believe, and one thing that I did not do when I messed around with this the first time, there's a muting switch. I did not clean the muting switch, so I suspect that the muting switch is the issue because of the sound quality and the fact that it just like dropped. It went from sounding good to where it just completely muffled. So again, I swapped head shells on my PL510, and the cartridge that was on here, the head shell worked just fine. So it's got to be something in that muting circuit is what I'm thinking right now. So I shouldn't say it's got to be something, but I suspect it's something in the muting circuit. So I'm going to flip this over, take the bottom off, and then we'll look at that muting circuit, clean it up, and then see what effect that has on it. All right, so here's how muting works. So I probably a combination of a couple of issues here. So this moves into position. So right now there's a gap, right? There'd be no signal, if I'm getting that right. And the dogs are barking just to distract me as I'm thinking. I'm trying to explain what's going on. So what happens is these close, and I believe when they're closed is when the audio signal will pass through. But there's a ton of grease behind here, so I'm wondering if it's combination of the contacts being dirty, right? So when this lever moves into position, it pinches those contacts together, and I believe with how this one is set up, when those contacts are closed, that's when you get sound. It may be the opposite. It may be when they close you don't get sound, but either way, I think these contacts are dirty, and there's a whole bunch of old grease here, because notice how it doesn't always want to, like it gets stuck right there, and it should be free to move all the way up. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to get some contact cleaner, and then take, I usually take like a little bit of cardstock, or I'll take I keep a bunch of kind of sticky pads. I'll fold it up into, fold it a couple times, get it soaked with the contact cleaner, then clean the contacts, and then I'm going to remove this screw, and hopefully that will just come right out. Then I can clean the grease from underneath that. So I'm going to try to do those two things, and then we'll see if that remedies the problem. So here's an example of how I clean these. So this is just a little tiny sticky pad, right? And I'll fold it up, fold it over, right? This is 2. And then I'll spray it down with a little bit of contact cleaner on both sides. Get it wet. And I do the same thing when I clean relays on any kind of relays. Protection relays, reel-to-reel. Players have tons of relays in them. And I get it wet, and I just go back and forth like this. Now sometimes you have to reburnish these. You can use you don't want to use like sandpaper on them or anything, but you can use a little bit more of a coarse material as long as it's not metallic to clean those off. And really there was a little bit, see a little tiny bit there, but it's not real bad. So again, I suspect it's probably the grease, but I'll clean this up anyway, just to be sure. Okay, so that's probably as clean as I'm going to get that. And then remove this, and I'm hoping nothing goes flying. And for some reason, on cassette decks and turntables, manufacturers love to use like the softest screws they could. So they strip really easily. So let's move this. I think that's a piece of metal there. I'm not going to get crazy, but you can see... Oh, damn, I'm out of shop towels. I have to pause and grab some towels and come back. Yeah, I used my last shop towel on another project I was working on. So I've got a lot of turntables coming up. This is 1, 2, I'm just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turntables coming up. And 1 cassette deck, an amp, and a receiver right now. So maybe I'll shoot a project preview video of all that stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, I'll use some lithium grease here because I like to use that stuff. Get a little bit of alcohol on here. And make sure to get all that stuff gone. Alright. Give it a second to dry. Put the lithium grease down. Should be enough. And flip this back over. And that spring came off, which I didn't want it to come off. Man, that thing is slippery. And this sat in there like so. I gotta find that. There we go. Alright. Yeah, see now it's not getting gunked up on the grease. I'm gonna clean up a little bit of that lithium. Sure, I got it kind of more evenly distributed here. Alright, so I'm hoping that is the problem. I can't figure out, or I can't think of any other problem that would cause that issue. Let me zoom out so you don't have to look at my hand. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and button this up, and then I'll connect it. I've got a receiver that I've been working on, a Pioneer SX780, and I'll talk about that when I move this over there. I shot a video on it where I did the repair, but some interesting things happen with this receiver that I want to talk about. And one of the things that maybe people don't consider when they're buying a receiver, yeah, there's just a lot. But, you know, not all speakers are good matches for receivers. So, for example, on a Pioneer that uses those Darlington power packs, I'd be very careful using 4 ohm speakers that are known to be kind of hungry, especially when they're the original power packs, because on the 780, so worked just fine, set it up just fine, working fine in the shop. Customer buys it, takes it home, bought some 4 ohm speakers, some big 4 ohm speakers, tried to drive it with those, blew one of the power packs. So replaced the power pack with, you know, an aftermarket power pack. Takes it back home, didn't replace the other power pack, just the one that went bad, plugged it in, same thing happened. So brought it back here, plugged it in some 8 ohm speakers, and I cranked this thing, put it on my scope, no issues at all with the power pack. So, and I mean I replaced the transistors that could contribute to blowing those packs when I did each side. So the only thing I can think of is a mismatch between the speakers and the packs, or this receiver that uses those power packs. At least that's my theory, so could be wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and move this over and give it a spin and see if this works. Alright, so here, oh, a little shaky. Here is the PL117D. I know I have the Bose speakers not in the right position. These are just test speakers. I'm just seeing if I can get some sound out of this. So, oh, you know what? It probably helps if I plug the turntable in. There we go. Well, let's see what happens with the sound now. Let's see. No sound at all. That's interesting. So FM works. No sound on phono. Huh, that is bizarre. I don't know why I'm not getting any sound. So I'm going to have to go back and put this on the bench and see if I can figure out what's going on with this thing. Again, this cartridge and stylus are good. Huh. Well, back to the drawing board. Let's see if I can figure this out. Alright, I'm going to spin this and show you what it should be doing. So I'm going to press the start button and spin the spindle. And you're going to see some stuff moving. So what should happen is, so as I spin this, when these contacts are touching, it mutes the circuit. That's how this one works. So what happens is, it's going to do it in just a second. You'll see this open here in a second because there's a lever. This little peg right here, I don't know if you can see that. That little white piece right there is going to come and make contact with this to open that up. So it'll open, but see how it closes? It's not supposed to, I don't think it's, well, it's not supposed to close, because when it closes, then you get no sound. So why is that not staying open? Right? Why does it close right away? Why does it do that? Because it should stay open. So I'm not real sure what has changed to make that happen. Right? Because close, 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 open, and then closed again. So that's what's causing no sound, but why is that not staying? Huh. That is strange. Right, because it should stay right there because there's a gap. Oh, maybe I didn't have that screwed down tight enough. Let's see. Let's try it again. All right, hit start. It's going to spin. It's going to do its thing. Here comes the little post. It's going to make contact. Nope, it's going to open and close. Man, what is up with that? What is up with that? Not sure why. Why would it do that? Because it should stay right there. So, now I could, I could make it to where this is open all the time. I don't think that would be a good thing to do, but I don't understand what would make that stay open. So I'm going to take this apart again and look at it and see if I can kind of determine mechanically what's supposed to be happening here. You know, the issue with not having that muting circuit is, it's yeah, I don't know what the issue is. But anyway, I can shut the muting circuit. I can remove the muting circuit. All I have to do is loosen the screw and turn it a little bit. Kind of adjust the position of the. Well, no, I guess that's, well, there's a screw. Yeah, I can move it. If I wanted to kind of remove that from the. Sorry, I'm just in the process of thinking this through. Why is it doing that? All right, well, I'm just going to keep flipping things and chewing on this. So let me pause, come back, see if I can determine what the issue is and what I might be able to do to fix that. All right, I think I see what's happening now, but I don't understand why it's doing this. So if I press start and spin this, I want to show you what I believe is supposed to hold that into position. So the same, and the piece that I'm referring to is this piece right here. So this piece will push this, and then I believe it's also supposed to hold it into position. And what's happening is it's pushing it, but it's not holding it. So yeah, it's supposed to, because of the position it is. So what it's catching on, if I move this, is that same post. Now, I don't know if a little piece of plastic is broken off of that, if something's misaligned. Everything seems to be working okay. But that is what is preventing it from opening that muting circuit up. And I don't believe there are any adjustments that I can make. Oh, there is an adjustment I can make. But I don't know if this will be a really good idea or a really bad idea. What I can do is take this out and... Oh, no. I was thinking I might be able to bend this little piece of metal. But, so that post is hitting right on the edge of this right here. That's where it's supposed to make contact. Because you can kind of see where it hits and scrapes across it. I thought maybe I could bend a piece of metal out a little bit. But I don't think that'll do anything. Well, gosh, it's kind of like the only option is to disable that muting. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can just barely bend that. So I think if I bend it just a little bit this way, I think it'll grab that. I'm going to be very careful, and I'm only going to do it a little tiny bit. Like so. See if that does anything. I'm not sure it will. Kind of got a little happy with the grease, I'd say. Alright, let's try this again. Thank you. Thank you for not staying in position. I appreciate that. Because otherwise, the only thing I can think of is to disable that circuit. And I've done that on dual turntables before. I've disabled or removed that whole muting circuit assembly because of the tarnish on it. I don't like to do that, but all right. So let's see. Let's move this through its paces again and see what happens. Oops. All right. Let's see. There we go. All right. So that goes. It's coming around. Let's see what happens. It moves it. And it holds it. So bending that little piece of metal has opened that up. Now let's see. Oh yeah, and it's pretty good in there. All right. So what I did was here's the post that holds it in position, right? So here's the piece of metal, and the metal's kind of sitting straight up and down like this. Here, let me kind of, so here's that post, right? The post comes around and pushes it, and the back end of the post would make contact with this piece of metal. Well, what I did was I bent this piece of metal to where it had a little bit more of a point to grab down there, right? So just flexed it enough to where, instead of there being like almost no room for error to hold that in position, bending it out a little bit will lock it. Now the question is, will it return? Will it shut itself off if a record is returned? So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and see what happens, and I'll move the camera over there and show you if this was successful or not. All right, moment of truth. Start. Now I've noticed I have to hold this button down for a second to make sure it starts. There it goes. Oh, and then the dogs bark, and I love when the dogs bark. I love when the dogs bark. It's really my favorite. Oh, sound out of both channels. Alright, don't want to get hit with a copyright violation, so won't play too much of Johnny Rivers. Go to the end, and it picks up, and I think we are good. Let me just make sure it shuts off. It's cold in the garage. This sat in here for the last couple of days. So, alright. The Pioneer is done for now. So that muting circuit problem was just that when I replaced the cam gear, maybe the sorry, I'm hitting this thing. Maybe the cam gears are fitted to each other, but when I replaced it with the replacement cam, maybe the plastic was just a little bit off, so I bent that little piece of metal, and now it seems to work okay. So I'm going to call this one done for now. I'm going to move this inside, leave it in the house overnight, and just fire it up in the morning to make sure that it works. So if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.